Hello, and thank you for your interest in LanguageCert, an approved SELT provider for the UK government. I'm Janet Golding, and today I'll be talking to you about preparing for your B1 speaking and listening exam. So first, I will talk to you about your exam. Then I'll move on to information about preparing for your exam. Then I'll tell you about what to do on exam day. And finally, I will give you some other useful information. Okay, first, let's look at some information about your exam. A B1 speaking and listening exam is an online interview with a live examiner. We call them an interlocutor, by the way. You take the test at a LanguageCert SELT test centre. The test takes between 11 and 13 minutes. Your preliminary result arrives in 15 minutes to your email address after the end of the test. Your official result arrives in 3 business days. Your pass mark needs to be 60 marks or more out of 100. Moving on now to the 4 parts of the test. In part 1, you give personal information. In part 2, you start or you answer in 2 everyday situations. In part 3, you give information and you listen to information. And finally, in part 4, you listen and answer questions. Then you talk about a topic. Now, let's look at preparing for these 4 different parts. Starting now with part 1. Part 1 lasts for 1 minute and 30 seconds to 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You need to give personal information and talk about your opinions and your ideas. You must say and spell your family name. Say where you are from, and then answer 4 questions about everyday topics. Here is an example of part 1. First, the examiner will ask you these questions. Can you spell your family name for me, please? And where are you from? Then they'll ask you 4 more questions about everyday topics, like these, for example. Friends. How often do you go out with friends? Or language. How will you use English in the future? Or watching films. Who do you usually watch films with? Or perhaps times of the year. Which month of the year do you like best? Why? Here is some helpful information for part 1. Remember, the examiner asks you 2 questions. Can you spell your family name for me, please? And where are you from? Everyone answers these same 2 questions, so be prepared. Answer clearly and confidently. Spell your family name correctly. In fact, before the exam, practice doing this. Remember, the examiner will ask you 4 more questions about everyday topics. These are the same examples from the other slide. Here is some helpful information for you to prepare for this part of part 1. Be ready to give opinions with your examples. Try to be natural and avoid rehearsed answers. Think of typical questions about these topics. Then, before the test, practice answering them with a friend. Again, before the test, practice with other B1 level everyday topics. Look at our qualification handbook to help you. Record yourself answering questions about these topics on your phone. Ask a friend to listen back and tell you about the language you use. Are you speaking clearly? Are you giving full answers? Okay, now let's look at part 2. Part 2 lasts for 1 minute and 30 seconds to 2 minutes. And you need to communicate in 2 everyday situations. You must start the conversation or answer. The examiner will tell you what to do, so please listen carefully. Here is an example of part 2 where you will have 2 role plays. Example of role play 1 is this one. The examiner can say, "We're friends. We've agreed to go out tonight. I start. So, what are we going to do?" And you answer. Then you both continue in a short conversation. Here is another situation. The examiner can say, "I'm your waiter in a cafe. There's a problem with your drink. You start." So you start. The examiner replies, and you continue together in a short conversation. When you do part 2, here is some helpful information to prepare. So remember, if you have a situation like this, "We're friends. We've agreed to go out tonight. I start. So what are we going to do?" And you answer. Remember to ask if you don't understand the role play situation. Remember, you have to give full answers and 2 turns at least. 2 turns from you and 2 turns from the examiner. Before the test, why not ask a friend to be the examiner and read out one of the situations to you? Listen carefully and you say back exactly what you heard. Now listen again to your friend, and this time give the main details of what you have to do. Then practice a situation in full with your friend in timed conditions. Why not use your phone alarm or watch to help? Okay, here is an example we saw before. "I'm your waiter in a cafe. There's a problem with your drink. You start." Some helpful information can be, you need to think quickly and then start. Be relevant. Be appropriate. Be clear in what you are saying. Don't forget to ask if you don't understand the situation before you start. Try to use some of the functions from the B1 list in the qualification handbook where you can. And practice before the test some situations like this where you start. Do it with a friend. Why not use the practice paper examples? Okay, let's look at part 3 now. This takes 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and for this part you must give and ask for information and talk about your opinions with the examiner. So, in fact, you must talk with the examiner to make a plan, arrange or decide on something using pictures. Here is an example of part 3. So the examiner might say, in this part of the test, we're going to discuss something, all right? We want to start a new hobby together, but we haven't decided what. Here are some ideas. Let's ask and answer questions to help us decide what to choose. I'll start. What do you think about learning to play the guitar? Then you answer, and a conversation continues. Here is some helpful information for part 3. Ask if you don't understand what to do. Look quickly at the pictures and start thinking about what to say. Answer fully and do give a reason for your opinion. Try to answer in 2 or 3 sentences lasting about 20 seconds. You might want to practice this before the exam. Remember, you need to plan or decide or arrange something, and you need to use a range of B1 language. Before the exam, practice this type of activity with a friend in timed conditions, using the alarm on your phone perhaps. How much did you manage to say in the time allowed? Did you both agree? Let's look now at part 4. There are 2 different things for you to do in part 4. Firstly, we have part 4A, which takes 3 minutes. In this part 4A, you need to listen and understand someone talking about something. Then you listen to the examiner and answer questions. So if we look at this example, you listen to the examiner twice, reading something. You will see questions before you listen, and you can take notes. They are not part of the test, so don't worry. Here is an example of what the examiner might read to you. My name is Hans and I live in Frankfurt. I'm a businessman and I travel a lot because of my job. I've visited most big European cities, but I'd really like to travel to a Greek island one day. I have friends who live in Greece and they always send me photos of their trips to the different islands. I'd like to book a house on the beach, somewhere not very crowded. My friends tell me that the best time for this is in September, but I'm always busy then, so I think I'll have to do it in July. I'm not sure if there'll be museums to visit though. I think I'd rather relax anyway, go swimming, lie on the beach to soak up the sunshine, and then try the local food, especially recipes with fresh fish. I think I'll just do the same things every day. Here are some typical questions you might see before you listen and then answer. Where would Hans like to travel to? According to Han's friends, when's the best time for the trip? And what local recipes would Hans like to try? Okay, here is some helpful information for part 4A. Remember, you listen to the examiner twice. So if you miss something the first time, don't worry. You will see the questions first and you can take notes. You hear the information twice, then you answer the questions. Read the questions carefully. Think about the order the information comes in. And look forward when listening, so always answering at the right speed for the appropriate question. In fact, know when to move on. Write words or brief notes only, so you concentrate on listening. Don't worry if you miss something the first time. You have another chance to listen for the answer. Before the exam, practice listening and answering questions with a friend using our practice papers. Let's have a look now at part 4B, which takes 2 minutes and 30 seconds to 3 minutes. You need to talk about a topic after having 30 seconds preparation time. You must talk for 1 minute and 30 seconds about a topic that the examiner gives you. You then need to answer some questions. So, if we look at an example of 4B, remember you need to talk on your own and then answer questions. So the examiner can say, for example, you are going to talk on your own for 1.5 minutes. Your topic is a trip you'd like to take. You now have 30 seconds to write some notes to help you. You're going to talk about a trip you'd like to take. The examiner will tell you when to start, and when you have finished, the examiner can ask you some questions like this. How do you prepare for a trip? Which is more popular, booking online or with a travel agency? Why? What are the main reasons people travel nowadays? What are the main things to consider when choosing holiday accommodation? Okay, here's some helpful information for part 4B. Remember, in part 4B, you talk on your own and then you answer some questions. So ask if you don't understand the topic or if you need the examiner to repeat the information. Do use the full 30 seconds preparation time and make some brief notes to help you. You can do a mind map or write bullet points or just think of some key ideas and then put them in a logical order on your note paper. The examiner will tell you when to start speaking, so don't worry about that. When you're speaking, use sentences and really try to connect your ideas and points logically and clearly. Do your best. Think and speak clearly. Keep going. Say as much as you can. Before the exam, practice with a friend by talking about something uninterrupted. Keep going until your friend tells you to stop. Find other B1 topics from our qualification handbook and then think of and then answer questions about those topics. Try doing this with your friend or a member of your family. Okay, now let's look at what to do on exam day. Remember, arrive at the SELT test centre 30 minutes before the start of your test. You will need to complete sign-in procedures. You will need to bring the same photo ID, for example, passport, that you use to register for your exam. You will leave your belongings in a locker because bags, mobile phones, and other personal items are not allowed into the exam room. Breaks are also not allowed during your exam. Do ask the friendly test centre staff if you have any questions before you start the test. And of course, ask the live examiner if you have any questions while you are doing the test. Okay, now let's look at some other useful information to help you prepare for your exam. LanguageCert has a lot of material to support you on our website. The most important document is the Speaking and Listening Qualification Handbook. It has very useful information about the test, including grammar, functions, topics, and so on. You might also want to try out our practice papers with a friend. We also have recorded examples of the exam and FAQs, typical questions with typical answers. You might also want to take a preparation course before the exam, maybe to improve your English at this level, or just to prepare more for the tasks that we have in our tests. For any questions about our SELT exams, please do contact our customer service team anytime. They are always there for you. Okay, if you have any questions now after listening to this introduction on preparing for your test, please visit the website or email us. Here are the 2 addresses you will need. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you for your time today and good luck. Goodbye.